إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفر ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Alhamdulillah, we are here again with our TAJWEED class. This is our 8th class now. There are a few things you should know. I may be redundant in my statements, but I want to keep on reiterating the point. These classes are not for entertainment purposes only. It's not for entertainment purposes, period. We try to make you have fun, but we're trying to teach. We're trying to teach a class here. And I have to go back and correct the mistake that I was making when we were going through the idgham rule. We'll go through it in a lesson. I said, if everybody remembers the last sentence, I said you keep your mouth slightly open when you do the meme and the noon. That was a mistake. I thought about it and thought, hold on, I made a mistake during that class. And it should be direct, complete closure. Even though it has ghunnah, that is considered part of, again, complete ghunnah with the noon and the meme. So if you go back to that lesson, and I'm sure Makeen, he put some writings on that when the mistake popped up and everything. So, Jalla man la yashu, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one that doesn't make a mistake. And we're not too big enough to show that we make mistakes too. And even though it was a mindful mistake, even at that time I had asked the Imam, hold on, did I make a mistake? Because I thought about it and I remembered it when I got on the train. So go back. That part there, when we put the noon and the meme, I'll go through it through the book, inshallah. This week, okay, let me go back another further part. We've gone over a few things in this class. We started off with the introduction to the text. This text is a baby text, Tuhfatul Atfal. It's a text by the Sheikh Sulaiman al-Jamzuri from Egypt, outside of Tanta. And we explained that this text is what a primer text in Tajweed, a beginner text in Tajweed. Then we went over the 10 things that everybody should know about a science. We went over that. Then we started with lahn and turuq and these different types of tilawa. Different ways of reciting, so people should become familiar. Lahn is how many types? 2 types of lahn, right? Jali wal khafi. A light type, jali is big mistake, and khafi is a light mistake that you can get away with that doesn't really mess you up. Then we went over the types of tilawa, types of qira'ah. You know, we explained the difference between qira'ah, and there's 7 different types of qira'ah. Some say 10. We would agree that there are 10 ways of reciting the Quran. Actually, there are 20 ways of reciting the Quran, because each one of those qadis has 2 narrators of his style. So we went over that and how that people get that confused when they hear someone reciting differently. They think that's a different qira'ah, where it could be a different tilawa, a different style that a person is reciting from his own self. Like you have, Sheikh Abdul Basit, rahimahullah. He recites different from Manshawi, but they're not different qira'ah. They're just different ways of that person reciting that same exact style. And that is acceptable. Okay? And that's not considered a different whole style of reciting the Quran. It's just that person's way of reciting the Quran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Okay? Then you have wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Then we have, after that, we went directly to the texts. We named the text. Now, when going through the text, the first thing we went through is the name that there's noon is sakina with tanween. The first set of rules. Now, the rules follow sets. The first set of rules is concerning the noon, that is sakin, and the tanween, right? Or when it comes to tanween. And we spent time explaining what a noon was, a clear letter that you can see. This is the noon. And that the tanween is one of these types of functions that you see. This is tanween. Whereas this sign represents the noon sound, where this is an actual noon sound. And we even went so far to explain what that was, that sukoon, how and what it came across from being a kha, and how it means khalin, meaning to be void of having any vowel sound. Okay? So we went through that, and then we went through the rules. We started going through the rules of noon is sakina wa tanween. None of these lessons are difficult. That's another thing I'd like to point out. None of these lessons are difficult. These lessons are very easy. Anyone can follow them. The problem that we have as Westerners is being consistent. And not just being consistent, after finally being consistent in watching, doing the follow-up work, the behind-the-doors work, the actual study and memorization to make the text more than just something we're familiar with, but to make it something that we actually can teach. Because we started off saying, each one teach one, that we're doing this to empower, to enable, to make more people available to teach something that is something that no one can disagree about. No one can disagree about these things. The classes that we do come from classical works. That no one can say, oh, this is right. No, this is the way it is. And we try not to get into those things once you get a basis that you get into ikhtilaf about. Because what we have done as a people, we get into this great ikhtilaf about things that we have no foundation in. We don't even know the foundation about those things, but we want to argue about it. When we should know just the basic things. Who's going to argue about a sukoon? Who's going to argue about a noon? Okay, so the rules are, we started off, what's the first rule? The first rule is what? Idhar, right? I'm glad everybody called that out. The first rule is idhar, which means what? To pronounce something clearly. Okay, and I made a point to say, to make the noon sound independent. Right? I like this language, independent, because the noon sound at times, this teaches us a principle that sometimes the noon is not going to sound independent. It's going to be mixed. We call it idgham. Or it's going to be hidden. We call it ikhfa. Or it's going to get flipped. We call it iqlab. You know? So here when idhar, it is when the noon sound is clear and independent, leaving no doubt that you're saying an, in, un. And we went through each letter, ben, bin, bun, tan, tin, tun, through each sound so that people can get a practical application of how this rule is applied. Okay? Because it comes before certain letters. What are the letters of idhar? The letters of idhar are hamza, faha'un, right? Thumma, aynun, ha'un. Muhmalatani means they don't have anything on top of them. Right? Then with dots we have ghaynun, kha'u. 6 letters, and the thing that these letters are all similar in is that they all come from the throat. These are the letters of the throat. Intaha. We're finished with this rule. And then we gave an example of each one with the noon. Man, amana. You know, we started going through each one. We gave an example. Then we gave an example with the tanween, juruf and har. If we go through, we went through and gave an example for them, right? So that you will be familiar. And not all, but most of the examples came from where? Juz amma. Most of the examples came from juz amma. Now we went to the next rule. The next rule, we come over here, traveling right along. The next was thani idghamun بغير غنة بستة أتات في يرملون عندهم قد ثبتت. So then here we said the second rule was idgham. Idgham, right? Now idgham, just like idhar, and from this word we have dhuhr, right? The dhuhr salat, dhahr, my back, something that's clear, just to point to what the word is. And we notice a lot of times that the original meaning of a word is tied to its its legal ruling, its legal application, I should say. The linguistic ruling or meaning of a word is usually tied to its legal application. Okay? I have too many L's in my throat. Okay, going. We have idgham. And idgham means dakhala shay fi shay, to enter something into something else. Okay, and I gave the example. Let's say you have a tube here, right? And you stick your hand, I'm not an artist, okay, inside the tube, so then all of a sudden you don't see the hand anymore, right?